What if I told you that what we saw in Baku with Lewis Hamilton was more than a bad weekend? What if that SF25 that seemed to have potential actually hit a failure that can condemn the entire Ferrari season? What happened in Azerbaijan was not a simple strategy error or a bad classification. It was a technical revelation that can change everything. It all started with an illusion carefully fed by Friday's numbers by telemetry for on-screen times. Lewis Hamilton, in his new chapter with Ferrari, led the second free training session of the Azerbaijan 2025 Grand Prix with a time of 1:41.293. That record was not only the fastest of the day, but overcome Pole's time from the previous year. It was the type of action that lights on hope, which lights headlines, and that revives it in the Tifosi who had been waiting for a clear sign of redemption for years. Behind that spectacular Hamilton time hid a false reading. The SF25 had been specifically adjusted to attack the stopwatch, sacrificing consistency in long batches, energy management, and aerodynamic balance. In a scenario where the degradation of tires was low and the climatic conditions were stable, Ferrari configured the car aggressively to highlight in a number the best time of the day. A media effective but fragile bet. What many did not see or did not want to see was that Hamilton data reflected short, not sustainable yield peaks. The battery of the hybrid system showed slight inconsistencies already in the longest stints of the session. The temperature of the tires fell too much between turns, and the telemetry sensors have already begun to report strange readings in the delivery of the MGUK, the system that recovers energy in braking and returns it in acceleration. But for now, all that was silenced before the brightness of a first place in the timetable. On Saturday in Baku, it came as a silent blow. While the sun continued to bathe the long straight of the urban circuit, in the Ferrari box a tension was breathed that had nothing to do with the live just 24 hours before. The illusion of Friday evaporated minute by minute, and nobody knew how deep the fall would be. It all started in Q1 with subtle signals. Hamilton came out early, looking for a clean turn with new soft tires. Its SF25 seemed more nervous, less planted in braking, and with an intermittent power delivery to the curve output. The sectors were competitive, but no longer dominant. The Q1 ended without shocks, but far from the expected times. A car that had been the fastest on Friday now barely passed around. Then in Q2, the unthinkable happened. Lewis Hamilton was eliminated, with a time unable to place it among the best 10. Neither the perfect rebuild, nor the last attempt, nor the experience of 7 titles could counteract what was happening. His SF25 did not respond. I lost speed in line, did not traction well at the exit of slow curves, and the most serious, I did not recover energy as it should. It was a painful elimination, not only for what it represented for the classification, but for what began to reveal. The SF25 had a structural failure. What was believed a simple loss of rhythm was the visible symptom of a deep problem, one that Ferrari still did not know how to explain. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc, in his attempt to save the honor of the team, risked more than the account. In his final attempt on Q3, he lost the car in the castle section, crashing against the wall. The impact not only ruined his return, but compromised his exit position and revealed the fragility of the car under pressure. Ferrari went from having a dominant car in free practices to have both pilots out of the royal fight on the podium, but the worst was yet to come. On Sunday, during the race, the true magnitude of the problem came to light. After a clean start, Hamilton began to lose ground in the lines. Telemetry would later confirm what their engineers already feared. The hybrid SF25 system, specifically the MGUK, was not delivering power. Every time Hamilton left curve 16, key in Baku, for giving way to the long main straight, the car simply run out of electric thrust. There was no additional acceleration. There was no possible defense. There was no attack. For approximately 75% of that line, Hamilton's car suffered a partial disconnection of the hybrid system. This was not a momentary failure, it was a constant pattern. A power vacuum that converted SF25 into an easy prey of any car with a functional system. And in modern Formula One, where the recovery and deployment of energy defines competitiveness in the race, this type of failure is a sentence. The onboard camera showed Hamilton trying to change motor modes, adjust the brake balance, communicate with its engineer. But there was no possible solution from cockpit. The problem was systemic. It was a fault in the heart of the car. Fred Vasseur, team director, admitted it after the race. Ferrari had suffered a critical problem with the energy recovery unit. a defect that had been demonstrating from the first races, but that even Baku had not been exposed in its entirety. Such a long line, a configuration so sensitive to electric deployment, made it undeniable. And so, what began with promises of redemption ended with Ferrari stripped before the world. Hamilton outside the top 10, Leclerc fighting without weapons, and the SF25, the car that had to return the glory to Maranello, revealing its greatest weakness just when it was most needed. What seemed an isolated anomaly was soon revealed as the symptom of a more complex disease. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix was the scenario where Ferrari SF25 showed its true face, that of a technologically incomplete car, unable to sustain the competitive rhythm when the conditions require optimal functioning in all systems. The focus of the crisis quickly focused on the hybrid system. But as the engineers scrutinized the telemetry data, the puzzle pieces began to fit. The problem was not only the intermittent deployment of the MGUK, but a structural inefficiency in the energy recovery system. Ferrari detected that, in certain braking and acceleration phases, the car was losing more energy than he recovered. This completely broke the energy balance of the car. Telemetry graphics showed irregular curves in load recovery. Every time Hamilton stepped on the brake in key areas such as curves 1 and 3, the system failed to store kinetic energy with expected efficiency. And the most serious thing is that this energy was not transformed into a linear power at the time the car needed it more, the lines. The SF25 simply did not have to answer. And this, in Baku, where 75% of the circuit is traveling thoroughly, is a sentence of mediocrity. But the problems did not stop there. The detailed analysis of the career data revealed another critical defect. The thermal management of the car was poor. During the first stints, both Hamilton and Leclerc faced difficulties to bring tires to their optimal temperature window. In other words, the car could not properly activate the rubber, which translated into lack of grip, loss of traction, and irregular overheating in critical phases. In practice, this meant that the SF25 had two faces, cold in lines, unbalanced in curves. Every time the tires lost temperature in the long sections thoroughly, the car became unstable when it reached braking areas. The aerodynamic load became inconsistent and the braking unpredictable. Leclerc losing the car several times in curve 1, an area that normally has no risks if the car is in balance. The situation was aggravated by a suspension architecture that does not favor progressive load transfer in strong braking. The SF25 tends to sink into excess of the front axle, which decomposes the dynamic equilibrium of the car. This feature, combined with a very focused weight cast and inconsistent cooling efficiency, created an instability loop that affected not only the performance, but also the pilot's confidence. Hamilton tried to counteract this weakness by adopting an aggressive approach to aerodynamic configuration, less load, more peak speed. But in doing so, he lost even more traction in curve outputs. It was a desperate commitment to maintain visual contact with tip cars, but that in practice only aggravated their problems. Because without hybrid power, without traction in the outputs, and without a thermal balance in the tires, any strategy is reduced to a struggle to survive on the track. And so, Ferrari's real problem is not only mechanical, but philosophical. It is a car built on a wrong idea of what is needed to win in the current Formula One. It is a system that does not connect, a structure that does not collaborate with itself, a concept that does not translate into results. What we saw in Baku was not a bad career. It was the clearest mirror of a project that needs a deep, urgent, and structural review. After the Baku disaster, the inevitable question is installed in every corner of the paddock, in the halls of Maranello, in the analysis of the experts, and in the minds of millions of fans. And now what? What lived in Azerbaijan was more than a defeat. It was a public decompression of a project that was presented as a revolutionary, but that begins to show symptoms of technical collapse. In a sport where margins are microscopic, Ferrari has let out not tenths, but seconds in fundamental aspects of the architecture of his car. And this, in a season that promised redemption, is simply unacceptable. And in the center of that narrative is Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion who chose this project not for comfort, but by legacy. But that legacy is not built with words, it is built with results. And right now, that goal is further than ever. The question is no longer whether Hamilton can lead a resurgence of Ferrari. The question is whether Ferrari can give Hamilton the tools to do so. Now it's your turn. Do you think Hamilton did well to take this risk, or should he have continued in Mercedes, or look for another way? Do you think it is too late, and we are facing another chapter lost in the long history of Maranello's frustrations? Do I want to read you in the comments? And if this analysis gave you a new perspective on what happened in Baku and about Ferrari's future, he considers to subscribe. We approach circuits that punish errors, which demand technical and tactical perfection. And there we will know if Azerbaijan was a warning or the beginning of a free fall.